everybody.
Hi, friends. Well, from beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah,
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
the podcast.
I'm Frank Feldman.
And I'm Dan Beecher.
And coming up on the show today, Dan, Catholics and others, I'm sure, are, some strange things are happening. They seem to be getting a little bit more conservative, pushing back against Vatican II, in fact.
They are turning this car around and going back to the 80s.
Holy cow. Earlier.
50s.
Back to like the Latin...
the 1780s.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to be talking about that on the second half of the show and sort of some of the implications of like what it means when liberals leave churches.
Right?
And
Skun-dun-dun.
leave it to just the crazies.
To who's left.
Yeah. So we'll be talking about that. Up first, of course, we have some stuff happened this week. So we have some news of the week and interesting developments, including the story of a Catholic priest in Pennsylvania who's gotten into a little bit of trouble, Dan. And then, you know, Catholic priests in trouble, they seem to find each other these days.
They love
more
it.
and more.
There's nothing a Catholic priest likes more than trouble.
Oh, yeah, this poor guy. Lawrence Kozak. He's got a little bit of a problem. He's the former pastor of St. Thomas More Parish in Pottstown. I wonder if that's, if you say it so, Pottstown, or if it's Pottston or whatever. But anyway, he, Dan, used about $44,000 of the parish's money on Candy Crush and
oh my God,
Pokemon Go and some virtual slot machines.
No.
Yeah, well, and so that's just the portion of his spending that he charged to the parish's credit card. He spent over $214,000 on his Apple ID.
What?
On gaming.
How?
Well, you know, these slot machines.
To be clear, everyone, to be clear, these are phone games. These are games on your iPhone.
Yeah. And slot machines where you actually, there's no, you spend real world money, but you don't win real world money. I don't know
amazing.
how you get suckered into that. But
right?
Games like Cash Frenzy and Willy Wonka Vegas Casino Slots and Wizard of Oz slot machine game.
Absolutely not. What? Use the money and go to fucking Atlantic City, for Christ's sake. What are you talking about?
Where you stand at least some chance. It's not a good chance. The house always wins. Remember that. But you stand at least the chance of real money coming out of the machine at some point in the night.
Listen, my sense of slot machines in general is that you get in front of a machine, you put money in, a big swirly thing happens, a loud noise occurs, and then your money's gone. It's roughly the same as putting your money into a toilet and pulling the lever.
Oh, it's a little more dazzling.
It's a little more dazzling than that. Yeah. But when there's no chance at all of anything coming back to you, what could possibly be the allure of this thing?
Yeah, I mean...
I guess if it's someone else's money, then who the fuck cares? I don't know.
But 170,000 of it was his money.
Good Lord. What? Like, okay. You know, at this point, the man has a mental illness issue.
He's got a problem. He's got a real problem.
I don't want to actually make fun of that.
No. And nor would I want to make fun of anything that would keep a Catholic priest away from children.
Right?
So this is
give the man something to do.
This is time well spent.
And money well spent.
Well spent. If this is what it takes to keep him away from the kids, I'm all for it.
Suddenly the Catholic Church should be looking into funding this. There should be an entire free games for priests thing.
Yeah. Or just develop their own fun little game. You know,
oh my God,
for the priests. Like, why not?
Catholic Pokemon Go. That has got to be my favorite thing. And like, just hide them all around the parish. You know what I mean? Like Pokemon Go as a company. This is a game. For those of you who don't know, I played it when it first came out. I haven't touched it for several years, but like when it first came out, it was a sensation. And like you walk around, and it interacts with the real world, and you know, there are these critters that you're supposed to try and catch with your phone. And it's quite delightful. It's cute, whatever. All I'm saying is, there should be a Catholic version of it. And that makes me really happy. And now I want that to occur.
Yeah. Well, you could have saints. You could be catching saints that are out wandering in the real world. Right.
Oh my God. Hagiography Go. It sounds
there
perfect.
There you go.
Oh my God. Wow. That guy, I hope he gets the help that he needs.
Yeah, he was fired, was the first thing. He's also apparently...
That is not going to help him.
Sent at least one check for $8,000 to the new priest with a letter saying that he's sorry and that he's trying to pay back what he took.
No, don't do that. Don't pay back. It's the Catholic Church. You're fine. Just go get your help.
He's trying to do the right thing. I mean, he did take other people's money. Yeah. And he's trying to do the right thing, even though it's the wrong thing.
They fired you, bud. Find a better charity and just go.
Well, he's probably trying to keep himself out of jail. He was arrested and he's on bail right now. So he's trying to make amends, and somebody probably said, you know, if you start paying it back, the judge might go a little easier on you. But.
Oh my gosh. Well, gosh, you know, that's sad for him. I feel bad. And also, if you find yourself spending more than $10 a month on phone video games, seek help. You don't need to. There's plenty of free games out there.
Yeah, fair enough.
And there is help available. That's
especially
a real
for
thing.
The gambling stuff, like the slot
especially
machine
for the.
It's just like what?
Yeah, if you find yourself doing that, that is something that you can get help for, but you do need to. Secular Therapy Project, go find it. Anyway, I'm going to take us to here, where there is the headquarters of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, where you'll recall that back in 2019-ish or so, well, actually later than that, they got in trouble because their big investment portfolio, they have a group called Ensign Peak Advisors that is that just makes money hand over fist, and has become sort of the subject of much oohing and awing, because they have, you know, hundreds of billions of dollars. Well, I mean, Ensign Peak itself has over $50 billion. Probably more than that. It's all shrouded in secrecy. They got in trouble because they created all of these shell corporations, and then, you know, they did it specifically to avoid having to report how much money they have, because there's a threshold, which is over $100 million, beyond which you have to report. And they got in trouble with the Securities and Exchange Commission, and they got fined a whopping $5 million, which they laughed at. So
silly.
They're in trouble again. Because here's the thing. They keep not filing shit that they need to file and thinking that they're going to get away with it because they're sneaky. So the new thing is that they didn't file what's known as a Schedule 13G, which is something that you need to file if any single investor holds more than 5% of the shares of any publicly traded company.
Oh, okay.
This is to, there's wrongdoings that can go on. because when you're an investor in a company, you get to vote on things.
Sure, yeah.
Anyway, if you have an outsized share of any company, the SEC wants to know about it because they're going to watch you.
Right.
And here's the thing. Ensign Peak Advisors owns over 5% of several companies. But again, they thought nobody would notice because they just shuffle things off into shell companies. So no single entity that they control owns more than 5%.
Right.
But when you add them up, womp womp. So yet again, the Mormons decided not to learn any lessons from their thing because they're not afraid of the SEC or whatever. They should be a little afraid of embarrassment, but at this point, I don't know.
That's just their day-to-day operation now. Like they expect to. People don't like them. People, say things, whatever. They don't care anymore.
Yeah.
They've developed thick skin, probably. Dan.
Yeah. Oh, here's a figure. The estimated total wealth
no, I don't want to
is like something like 265 billion.
God.
And that's probably low. The thing that we learn about the Mormons is that they don't tell anybody. So anyone who wants to estimate their wealth is forced to sort of look into whatever they can look into, find out what is known,
right,
and then add that all together. But including their real estate holdings and their whatever, all of the stuff, roughly 265 billion.
Oh,
that's absurd.
They need everybody's 10%.
They need,
they
exactly.
Desperately need everybody's 10% so much.
My aunt who was always struggling with money. Boy, it was important for her to pay her 10% to the fucking billionaire church.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, Dan.
Yes.
A big development over at the United Methodist Church.
Yes, indeed.
They have officially lifted their ban on gay clergy, which is huge. This is, the United Methodists they've been struggling with this topic for quite some time now. There's actually
they damn skizzed about it.
Well, but there was even more skiz on the line, right?
Yeah.
They came up with sort of a, not necessarily a compromise, although maybe a compromise, but they've been able to keep the whole thing together. At this point, whatever entity exists at this point, they've kept it together. After this decision, the vote went at the big meeting went 692 to 51.
So that's good. But I will remind our listeners that like a few years ago, we reported that they voted to not allow the gay marriage, and then a whole bunch of conservative groups saw this coming,
right? And
they left,
and they did.
So this is the vote after all of the real shitbags.
Yeah,
left.
Okay. I mean, fair enough, but they have been working on this. They finally got around to it, and people within the movement, I guess, are they're just ecstatic. There were lots of moist eyes. And let's see, this goes all the way back to a 1984 ban that officially banned, quote, self-avowed practicing homosexuals from becoming members of the clergy. And then they later, at some point, some later date, they added a prohibition on performing or celebrating same-sex unions. And
that's gone too now, right?
And that is gone as well. So the United Methodists all of a sudden got good on the whole gay thing, which, from an atheist perspective, I never feel I have, and as a gay man, I always have mixed emotions, because it's like, well, I like to see sort of the general social progress on the issue of homosexuality, which is obviously very important to me. But I also just kind of instinctively dislike it when a church makes it more comfortable for anyone to stay within its ranks, right? Because it's like, first of all, I don't understand. I know religious gay people exist. And there are a lot of gay people who are believers. I don't understand it because there's so few religious organizations that are actually cool, actually legitimately cool with the gays. You can
and even if the religion is gay affirming, they're still using the book. They're still, you know what I mean? Like it's still like, it's dumb.
And so, but if it helps some people with feeling more accepted and feeling more safe in a place that they feel like they need to be, then it's obviously a good thing. I like the social progress aspect of it, but like you rightly pointed out, this comes on the heels of there being another big Methodist group that is already not a part of them over the issue. And so,
I like the fracturing that happens. Because I think that every time this kind of thing happens, a few people get shook out and wake up and go, "Oh, you know what? Maybe all of this is dumb." I feel like every time, like these big changes need to happen. Like society as a whole needs to acknowledge the rights and personhood of queer people. And so I am glad when it happens, when religions are get better with the LGBTQ plus community.
Yeah.
But also like people within the ranks see the struggle and go, wait a minute, what's going on? And I like that. I don't know.
Yeah, but the number of people that they retain because of it as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's probably a wash as far as like, the atheists, the progression of non-belief in America. It's, probably doesn't help us either way.
It marches forward. That progression, the atheist tide continues to roll in, and there's nothing nobody can do about it.
Yeah, but it's just, again, encountering gay people that are believers. It's always bizarre.
Yeah.
I had an encounter over at some friend's house. There was a kosher Jew, a gay kosher Jew at a dinner party.
Yeah.
And it was like, there's a lot of shellfish tonight. Shit. Okay. What are you doing? Why do you believe? It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But whatever.
I just like imagining the look on Frank's face when he hears about this and goes, oh, okay.
I'm the person's very supportive of people's dietary restrictions, Dan. I'm always right on board.
I'm more thinking about the religious side of it than the dietary side of it, but either way, there you go. Okay. So, I'm going, an interesting confluence has occurred. And I think we can all breathe a sigh of relief. That's not true. Here's the thing. We are at a moment in history where it is the dawn of AI. It is not as far as the doomsayers and the tech giants want us to believe.
No,
it is not as good as any of these people want us to believe, but it's coming.
Still propped up by people in the third world spying on you while you use the AI.
Right, exactly.
The quote unquote AI.
But there is an interesting element to it. I mean, there are ethical and sort of societally important questions that need to be asked as this field progresses, as the technology advances.
Yeah.
It's important to ask some pretty hard-hitting ethical questions.
Sure.
So it's good for non-programmers, because here's the thing: when you're a computer programmer, what you're excited about is, what can I achieve? What can I do? You're not really necessarily thinking about like social consequences or whatever, even though you saw Terminator, you know what's going on. But that's why other people need to step in. It's important.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Unfortunately, the other people who are stepping in are the Catholic Church, who have decided that they have good ideas and know what needs to happen in terms of human ethics when it comes to AI, and have been meeting with Silicon Valley, programmers and various companies to try and be, on the vanguard of those shaping the ethical structures that are in place.
Okay.
I don't believe this is a good thing. I think they are entirely the wrong group to be inserting themselves into the AI conversation, but
yeah,
there you go. At least somebody's doing it.
Well, they're probably concerned that if you do create an AI, you can never turn it off. You can never kill it.
Yeah.
Because you just created life, right? Now you're just going to turn it off.
Right. You're saying that would be abortion.
Anti AI abortion. And if you have one that's running amok, they're anti-death penalty, so you can't turn it off.
Yeah.
You have to.
And yeah. So there you go. I think what they really want is just for AI to be, I'm sure that they're already using AI to write their damn sermons every week. So,
oh God,
there you go.
That'll just make them better, I'm sure.
No less an ethical
GPT.
No less
is that
an
their ethical
organization,
concern?
Right?
What are the issues for them?
It's I am unsure. It is, they just I think I don't know. I don't know what they think the issues are. I think basically they just want to make sure that AI doesn't become gay. Chat GPT just running around holding hands with
other Chat GPTs,
with Mid-Journey or whatever.
Oh my God!
Frolicking through a digital field, whatever.
Well, they probably saw all the AI generated pictures of Jesus dancing in balloons and shit that they
right. Or the Pope in a puffy coat.
They were like, this is an ethical concern.
We have, yeah. What they want is, yeah.
He clearly would not be in Balenciaga. He would be in Prada.
No AI is allowed to say mean things about the Catholic Church. Can we just agree that ChatGPT is not allowed to say that Catholic priests molest children?
Also an ethical concern.
Yes.
Very important. All right, cool. Dan.
Yeah.
An interesting bill made it through the House of Representatives this last week. It is the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act.
Oh, yes.
Pushed by House Republicans, but passed on bipartisan grounds. And the Republicans see this as a fun wedge to push in the Democratic Party, because the Democrats are largely split on the Palestine issue.
Yeah.
And they see that, a lot of Democrats, they're accusing a lot of Democrats of tolerating anti-Semitism because of the liberal base that is pro-Palestine. And
to be clear, what they're trying to do is a disingenuous move where they say that if you don't support Israel in their genocide of the Palestinians, you're being anti-Semitic, which is not true. Can be true. Like, you can be both. You can not support Israel and be an anti-Semitic, but like that's not a guarantee thing. But boy, are they painting it that way.
Yeah. Anyway, so what has happened is, so the House Republicans are pushing it as a wedge. Turns out there's a lot of Republicans who are really upset about, a bill about anti-Semitism that is, let's see, it would, so this bill, if it passes the Senate, which doesn't look a sure thing at this point.
Right.
But nonetheless, if it did pass the Senate in some form, well, in its current form, it would be the first time that a definition of anti-Semitism entered into federal law, apparently.
Yeah. Well, and to be clear,
the law would instruct the education department to consider anti-Semitism when it investigates allegations of discrimination, or it would, discrimination against Jews on college campuses. Right. And what would it be clear?
I just love the idea that, like, if you find an instance of anti-Semitism, you must consider whether or not it was anti-Semitic, is basically what this bill is saying.
Right.
It's meant to be as a response to all of these, protests on college campuses across the country. And it's meant to silence these protesters by calling them anti-Semitic.
Well,
which again,
you don't let all of the protesters off the hook. There are plenty of the protesters that are actually entering into the realm of anti-Semitism, right?
Absolutely, that
happens.
So
this whole thing is a big ol' effing mess, right?
Yeah, it is. It is that.
It's a big political mess. Turns out, also for the Republicans, right?
Yeah.
You have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, surprise, surprise, coming out in opposition to the bill. Her reasoning is that it would, quote, convict Christians of anti-Semitism for believing the gospel that says Jesus was handed over to Herod to be crucified by the Jews.
Ta-da! There it is.
Let's see.
If you make a law against anti-Semitism, that would be anti-Christian because we're inherently anti-Semitic.
Yep. Matt Gaetz jumped on the bandwagon. He said that the quote, the gospel itself would meet the definition of anti-Semitism under the terms of the bill, which is also, maybe you shouldn't be pointing that out. Yeah. Or maybe from your standpoint, that's perfectly fine to point out. But he's all, well, if you use this definition, then it turns out the Bible would be anti-Semitic. And it's like, well, but this is a pretty basic definition of anti-Semitism. So,
crazy. What are you admitting to right now, Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene?
So, I mean, the Anti-Defamation League, which is an organization that is against Jewish anti-defamation, right?
Right.
They consider the assertion that Jews killed Jesus to be an anti-Semitic myth that has been used to justify violence against Jews for centuries.
It's true.
And then let's see, Pope Benedict actually has or did point out that there was no basis in Scripture for the belief that Jews were responsible for the death of Jesus Christ. Now, I think
Benedict did that?
Benedict. Yeah.
Benny, I was not expecting that out of you. Okay. All right. Well, there you go.
But yeah, Charlie Kirk is all upset about this. Did the House of Representatives just make parts of the Bible illegal? And so it just goes on. And of course, it's the possibly anti-Semitic wing of the Republican Party that's all concerned about being called anti-Semitic. We're not anti-Semites. We just don't like the Jews.
You gotta love when the when the ding dongs shoot themselves in the face trying to. They're so dumb. It is just so dumb.
It's great that they couldn't just like keep their people all in line. Like,
right.
Like if the Republican leadership had just like gone to their people and said, there's going to be some stuff in here that you can jump up and down on if you want to. But if you just let us do this, it's going to cause a problem for the Democrats. And you have Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz who just can't keep their mouth shut. You know,
and they're really good at making headlines.
Yeah.
So it's like, the Republicans are like, we found this great wedge issue. And Marjorie Taylor Greene's like, yeah, you just wedged me. I'll wedge. This is great. Matt, you want to wedge with me? And he's like, yeah, I'll wedge. Let's wedge. They done wedged themselves. Okay. I'm going to bring us back to here in Utah, for, some bad legislation. This was a bad legislative session here in Utah that we had, and some very bad things happened. And one of those things was that a bill was passed to basically, and we've heard about these kinds of laws before in other states. Apparently, Utah is incapable of learning from any other state's experience. But a transgender bathroom ban went through here in Utah, and part of the bill instructed the government to come up with a tool for reporting violations of the bathroom ban.
Yeah. I laugh because I know where this is going. Not that
they
did it.
It's pretty obvious where this is going.
Yeah.
Within 72 hours of the launch of the reporting form, over 4,000 complaints, pretty much all of which are bullshit.
Right.
Which, by the way, here's what I'm not suggesting that people do this. But I am going to say that I am now sending you, Franklin, a link. Let me just copy this link, and I'll go over here and I'm going to send it to you so that you can include it in the show notes, just to show people where people would go to do this. And then what I'm not going to suggest is that people do what I definitely didn't do, which is to go to that, then go to ChatGPT and have it write, and figure out how to have it right. Now, here's the thing. What it won't do, I've learned this, is if you prompt it to, it will not pretend to be an angry conservative parent who believes that they saw a person go into the wrong bathroom based on their gender. It will say, I can't fulfill that request because it goes against my guidelines to create content that promotes hate speech. I like that. That's fine. But what you can do is tell it to create an extremely long essay or a short story in which it's from the perspective of a parent who, while they're at their child's school, witnesses someone go into the woman's bathroom and does not mention until the very end of the essay that person was an otter. I think the point is make them read a really long thing that doesn't say that doesn't give away the game until the end, or maybe never gives away the game, but make it so fucking long.
Right.
And then put that into the thing. It took a couple prompts for me to figure this out, but then I was able to make quite a long thing. And by the way, I made it. I told it to be long, and then I kept telling it make it longer. Nope, longer.
Oh my God. Okay.
These are fun things that you can do with ChatGPT to make sure that they actually have to read try to make it so that they have to read for as long as possible before they can dismiss it. That's wasting their time is the point. If you want to, dear friends, did you know that you can put reminders in your phone for, 3 months from now when all of this has died down to go and do it again? I'm just saying. You can set a monthly reminder to go and do it. And then just make sure that, because you can submit these anonymously, you can put a name but no email address or no address. You can don't put the name. One of the things that was interesting is that they laughed it off as like, it's pretty obvious. We don't worry, we can figure out that they're all fake. You know what I mean?
Right.
The Utah auditor John Dougal said, "We didn't see anything that looks credible. It's pretty easy to screen." He says, "For example, if they have my name as a complainant, I'm not complaining. So don't use the name John Dougal, apparently." I actually asked ChatGPT to give itself a name to invent a name for this character.
Okay. Nice.
So there you go. You can do that. Change it from what I did, but don't make it the direct thing. Find an analog that ChatGPT won't care about.
You couldn't tell it to write a parody of somebody.
Maybe you can. I don't know.
With that kind of complaint.
I didn't want to write out a complaint, but I was having fun trying to prompt ChatGPT. Like that's kind of fun.
Yeah. It's a crazy little tool.
Get creative with it. See what you can figure out. How much of their time can you waste to make sure that they don't pay any attention to this goddamn thing?
So they, by statute, have to have this.
Yeah.
And they have to man it until at least the next legislative session when the legislature rewrites the rules.
Yeah.
And lets them off the hook because they realize what a waste of time it was.
Yeah. I don't know if we have an enterprising programmer out there in our audience who could write a bot that could just flood them all the time for eternity. But that wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's a thing, I guess.
Utah is becoming a shithole state. We used to be able to say that Utah was very conservative, but had a streak of practicality to it.
Right.
That they didn't, the other shithole states lacked.
Well, as one of the main political writers for the Tribune pointed out, the legislative session used to be run such that all the business happened at the beginning of the session. And then in the last few days were the nonsense days where everybody would come out with their dumb little message bills or their hateful bills, whatever. And whatever would happen with those would happen with them. Right. And he said that that's actually flipped. That now all that stuff's packed up front. All of the nonsense, all the message bills, everything attacking different communities. That's at the beginning of the session. And I thought that was a really telling sort of point as to how it's even functionally shifted, right? Because we always had the crazies. There were always the rural Southern Utahns who were just who would show up, or the Davis County, people who would just show up and have these ridiculous things that they wanted to talk about. But the leadership always pushed it to the end, right? They were you'll get your chance. Let's do the business of the state first, and then you can do it. And now they don't push them back.
And we could kind of count on the more sane people reining them in. And these things would be, they'd get their chance to scream about it on the floor of the House or the floor of the Senate. Yeah. And then nothing would happen because everybody realized that's bad law. We don't do that.
Well,
and now that's not the case anymore at all.
And I mean, not to diverge too much, but this is actually a great story that happened last weekend, I think, at the Republican state convention, where the Governor Cox, got up. He walked into the whole thing knowing that he was in trouble at the convention, right?
Yeah.
And that the delegates were all really pissy with him, a large percentage. And there's a tradition of late in Utah where the more sort of moderate office holders, they go to convention. They don't make it through convention. The delegates actually will make them go to a primary, right?
Right.
And this is it's whatever. But Cox got up, he started getting booed, and he starts in on this whole, and his whole diatribe wasn't great. Because it was a lot of stuff like, oh, do you hate me because, and then he had like a list of like their priorities, right? Because I signed that bill into law, like ending whatever. Like,
but at least he was whiny about it.
But then at the very end, he goes, no, you guys hate me because I don't hate enough. And I thought that was like a really interesting point to come from a governor of Utah. He's a conservative. He's definitely a Republican. There's no way this guy he's not really that moderate, but he's not a hateful guy. Right.
Yeah.
And he got up, and they don't like him because he's right. He doesn't hate enough to be popular with them. And that's where our politics are right now.
Fun stuff, everybody.
Yep.
Well, if you think that Frank doesn't hate enough, then you can write into us. Or anything. Anything you want to, you can write into us about it. Podcast at thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message. We'd love to hear from you. The telephone number is 424-666-8442. Stick around. There's more show coming up.
Well, Frank,
Dan,
I don't remember ever hearing about Gene Bailey, who is a Christian nationalist guy, but on revivalradiotv.com, this guy wants to teach us all about American history.
Oh, I love American history.
Yes. For those of you who aren't residents of the United States of America, you all know this because we're so obnoxious about it. But, one of the unique things about our country is that there was a moment when our country was created, and there was a group of people who wrote all the documents, and, they're our founding fathers and blah, blah, blah.
Or the
blah,
founders, blah, blah. If you choose not to lean into the founding fathers thing.
Gene Bailey is going to disappoint you on that front.
What?
Yeah. So
he's not going to just refer to them as the founders.
No,
that's too bad.
Anyway, well, let's see how much of his of American history he gets correct.
Yeah.
I want you to understand all that we've talked about with George Washington and our founding fathers and how we got our Constitution. It all goes back to Scripture. Everything that John Locke's two treatises of government, the Magna Carta, there's so much Scripture woven in there. If we will embrace what our founding fathers did, Greg, and with these documents that were not, I say they're not just penned by man, they're written by the divine hand of God. And some of these amendments, the Bill of Rights, those things are divinely inspired.
And Kenneth Copeland has reminded us we have a covenant.
That's right.
Those two pastors both made covenant in Mayflower and in Virginia.
Yeah,
I forgot.
Henry.
Yep. And then George Washington, as the President of the United States, did the exact same thing. You will be our God, and we will be your people.
Whoa.
Yeah. All of those scriptures that are woven into the documents of the founding documents of our country.
So many scriptures.
Let me just think of a few of them. There was obviously he said the Bill of Rights. That's got no. They're just claiming things.
Yeah.
This is what drives me crazy, is that their side gets to just claim things. They don't have to actually provide evidence or support their claims. They just get to claim things.
Yeah. No, it's so important, but it is really important to them that these documents are from God, because then they can argue against changing them.
Right. Well,
but also the Constitution has changed through time, right? It's recognized, like the full personhood of, African Americans. And
right.
So, or I guess it was really enslaved people that were counted at 3/5, but
right.
But nonetheless, but we know who the enslaved people were. It's like they want it to be perfect, but they clearly would never, you say this, I guess, but they would never go back to the original document, right?
Not only that
allowed for slavery, right?
They themselves constantly want to change it.
That's true too. Yeah.
They all would these two guys vote for a constitutional amendment to prohibit abortion? A million times yes.
Right.
So why, if it's so divinely inspired, why didn't God think of that when he was divinely inspiring these guys? Anyway,
you're right to point out that it's convenient. They support it in its original form when it's convenient, and they'll support changing it when it's convenient. But yeah, it has to come from God for them, so that you can't meddle with it, because they're the ones who know God, and they know what God would want done with the damn thing. So,
well, and also somehow America is the most specialist of all of the countries. Did God divinely inspire, the Constitution of Venezuela? What? Yeah. Anyway,
yeah, maybe he did. Maybe he did, Dan. You don't know.
I'm just,
I don't know.
I don't know. I do know that God was not involved in the creation of any documents.
How dare you? How dare you, Dan? About
any country. All right. Well, I'm going to move on. Let's talk to some of our fine listeners. They've written into us. This is from Dick, who writes in to say, "Hey, Frank and Dan, love the show. So last week, my wife came out to me as a lesbian. Huh. I'm quote, the 5% preventing the 95% from turning into the 100%. I actually don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means either.
After telling her, I'll just move on. We'll just glide over it. Somebody knows what it means. They'll probably write it into us. After telling her that I loved and supported her no matter what, I asked the obvious question, what does this mean for us? She went on to tell me absolutely nothing. I'm still her person and she plans on growing old with me. Ethical non-monogamy was always on the table, so she's just more likely to explore that. I went to bed that night feeling right as rain and happy that my best friend was finally finding herself. The next morning, I got up and decided to research what people in my situation could do to best support their spouse. That's when I started to spiral. Everything I read and listened to pointed to one thing: divorce. Therapists, bloggers, and researchers alike all pointed to the fact that staying with me made her live an unhonest and unfulfilled life. I can't imagine a world where we're not married, but I don't want her to suffer because of it. I have been spiraling hard. The only thing that keeps me up at night is the fact that she might wake up one day and not want to be with me anymore. Now the entire internet is telling me that this is not only possible, but inevitable. I ended up coming across a couple who'd been together for 30 years on the Coming Out Late podcast. They both said the same thing. Stay off the internet. It's all gloom and doom. After asking myself why, I went back to everything I had read and listened to. What do I find out? They're all Mormons. You can't Google mixed orientation marriage without mountains of Mormon and evangelical literature, research papers, and bloggers posing as neutral parties saying they shouldn't be together.
Whoa.
I didn't know who these websites were, so I didn't question it at first, but now I do, and I'm pissed. How many people like my wife and I are getting divorced and separated because of this? I know for some that is the right answer, but I also know it's not the only one. I think that's fascinating. I don't know why it makes sense to me that that's the case, but just intuitively, the idea of Mormons being the main people exploring the mixed orientation question is right.
Yeah, but like I would assume, like, if you just pose the question to me, right? Like, what would their agenda be, right? These Mormon folks.
Yeah.
And I would say it would be about keeping the marriages together.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Here's the deal. What happens is that Mormons are explicitly told that the way to get rid of your gay feelings is to get married in a straight relationship and pray, and just live your life that way. And even if you still feel gay, it's fine. Just do that. So they do it all the time. Mormons are constantly marrying, gay Mormons are constantly marrying someone of the opposite gender. And then, over time, it breaks, it wears out, because they're trying to live the straight Mormon lifestyle in order to remain Mormon. Like, the goal isn't, honor whatever it is that we like. The goal is do what Mormonism demands of us.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that's going to break. That's not going to work. Now, am I saying that, our beloved Dick here is that his marriage is going to last for time and all eternity? I'm making no predictions on that front. I don't, I just want you guys to be happy. Mm-hmm. So I don't care
whatever works for a specific couple. As long as, there's a lot of caveats there, but like whatever works, great. Do
and
it.
It sounds like you guys are communicating and you're being open and honest with each other. Yeah. Here's what I think. I think we need to stop as a society acting like the only way to have a successful marriage is if it lasts permanently. A permanent marriage, like plenty of permanent marriages, have been awful.
Sure.
So permanence is not success. Like, decouple those and just, and I think the Dick could stand to like release into the idea that it lasts as long as it lasts and you get as much joy out of it as you can get. And then if it stops lasting, that can be okay too. That can be beautiful as well. But if it keeps going forever, that's also great. Like, you guys find your own way. I think that's beautiful. And I think that is what every marriage has to do anyway. Like, regardless, yes, this is a complication that most marriages don't have to encounter. And yes, a lot of people have, choose different things. And you guys might find that over the years, as you start to explore, different things, that marriage is not the way you want to interact with each other, and you'll find something different. Who knows? But that's on you. That's your thing. But yes, it makes total sense that Mormons will give you the advice that, no, it can't work, because the people blogging the most about it are the ones who tried it and really hurt themselves in the process.
Yeah. Okay.
Because they were doing it because what they were attempting was the wrong thing entirely. They weren't attempting to craft their relationship that works for them. They were trying to craft a relationship that works for the church, and that's a different matter altogether. All right. The letter A wrote to us. I like it when letters write in. Who said, hello, fellas. Your most recent episode discussed the Spanish government having the cojones to pin down the Catholic Church for their child rape crimes. Unlike our Irish government in the past, one of our government ministers, Michael Woods, who described himself as a devout Catholic, on the Friday afternoon, and this person sent in a link, and I went and checked it. This was many years ago, I think 2011 or something like that. On the Friday afternoon of our government finishing up for their summer vacation, agreed to a deal with the Irish division or franchise of the Catholic Global Corporation that in return for their promise of initially 120 million euro from the church, the Irish state, aka the taxpayers, would cover the rest of the bill. No bringing this massive blank check to the Irish Parliament for discussion or debate. The bill for the Irish people so far, 1.5 billion euro. Meaning that the Catholic Church paid 120 million with an M, and the Irish people have paid 1.5 billion with a B.
Wow.
So yeah, wow, the Catholics made out like bandits.
Good for
apparently.
them. Look at them.
Yeah, good job.
Somebody knew what they were doing.
Oh my gosh.
It wasn't the Irish government, apparently.
Well, it was a Catholic member of the Irish government. Yeah. All right. This is Amber who says, "Hi, Frank and Dan. My name is Amber, and I was just listening to the new episode, April 29th, where you discussed corporal punishment in Oklahoma. I'm from a close small town suburb of Indianapolis. When I was in 5th grade in 2005, I was invited to the principal's office for a Student of the Year award, and he had a huge wooden paddle hanging on his wall with the "Spare the Rod" verse carved into it.
Great.
He still had it hanging in his office until he died in 2016, which I know because my niece was still a student there.
Good Lord.
I found it so unsettling and unprofessional. I worked as a high disability special needs paraprofessional in an elementary classroom, and we never needed to use physical punishment.
Of course not.
No, of course not. As a parent, I stand by that as well. It's so gross how they use religion as a justification to harm the most vulnerable of our society.
Yep.
Yeah. And, as we talked about in the Oklahoma thing, they want to do it to the most vulnerable of the most vulnerable, and that is the mentally handicapped.
Yep.
So, great. Good job, everybody. Well, do we have some folks to thank?
We do, Dan. We have some new donors, some new supporters on Patreon. We have a new deacon by the name of Don't Use Good Yarn on Bad Conspiracies.
Okay.
So
lovely.
Thank you very much. We have a new teacher. Well, I guess it's one of these conglomerate new teachers. It's Anthony and Teresa.
Oh,
it's a team.
You know what?
It's a team.
They've beat the system,
teacher.
and I'm giving the powers to both of them. They found the loophole, and they both get the powers. I'm sorry. That's how it's working.
And then we have a new priest by the name of Tracy. So
woo!
Thank you to all of y'all and to all of our current supporters and patrons and people on PayPal. If you'd like to join them in supporting the show, you can do so. Just go to our website, thankgodimatheist.com, and click on the support tab. There's options. There's stuff, right?
Yeah.
You can gain access to the Frank and Dan diaries, and you just have to do that on Patreon. And then, as always, Dan, we have our top donor to thank, our Lord and Savior, Davis.
More show coming up. All right, Frank.
Dan?
Here's the deal. The Catholic Church has been around for a hot minute. I don't know if you know this. They've been around for even longer than the Mormons.
It's not too hard to do.
Not too hard to do.
Although the Mormons are coming up on 200 years.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, the Catholics have been like at least 300 years. So
more like 2,000 years.
Yeah. Anywho, they go in cycles. Things come and go. Things happen, and they change over time. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't like changes over time, and so things happen. So astute listeners, people who know our history at all, or who were alive back in the 60s, will know that things changed there were some big changes to the Catholic Church back in the 60s. They called it Vatican II Electric Boogaloo. And yeah, it was a big sort of progressive thing. They ditched the Latin. I don't know what all they did. They did a whole bunch of shit. Anyway, since then there have been several other like very small but progressive changes, because as society changes, guess what? The religions change too.
Right.
They never drive good change, but they eventually follow suit.
Well, and also the things that you were saying are like so progressive that the Catholic Church did. They started doing the mass in the local language.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's so progressive. They started having like guitar masses, right? Isn't that like one of the? They started bringing different instruments. They started allowing girls to be altar boys,
altar people,
and they started doing stuff like that. And these things are so progressive. It's amazing. Right?
But what it did do was point out that, like, okay, they're looking in the direction of like, yes, it seems like it's a non-issue to let girls be altar children, but it actually points to they're looking at women in a different way. They're looking at the female members of their church in a different way. And now, 50 years later, now suddenly or 60 or whatever, they're talking about ordination. They're not doing it, but it's being talked about by higher up people in the Vatican. It's important now. And I think here's the thing, people don't like it. And more than anything, they just don't like change. I think that's the big thing. Or maybe, here's one of the things that you and I sort of were texting each other about is that, everybody's got to rebel. Every generation has to rebel against something. And, this article that we read in Religion News is, talks about how all of these older priests who are in their 70s and 80s, who were actually part of Vatican II and were in support of it, they're now seeing the younger generations of priests rebelling against their progressiveness by trying to take it back to a time before Vatican II and trying to get more conservative and be more, I don't know. Is Latin conservative? But yeah. I
guess, I don't know. It's all very weird to me, but it does really raise the whole question of who's left, right?
Yeah.
In the Catholic Church, right? Like if the progressives are all old and dying off, like these priests, right? And you have a lot of progressive families who've maybe just like, they're not creating the next generation of priests, right?
No.
And so, yeah, you're left with the loony bins.
Well, and that's true in the congregation as well, because the most progressive people are like, fuck it. This church is not changing. We are all accepting gay people, and the church won't do it. Right. We are all fine with trans people, and the church won't do it. We want abortion. The church won't get their act together about it.
Right.
They leave. So all of the like people who are actually thinking and being conscientious in their lives are leaving, and the people that are left are grumpy people who, no, I don't like to think about anything. Let's go back to the good old days or whatever.
The good old days that they have no idea what they were. That's also
no idea.
Yeah. Like things look nice in sepia tones, right? But like, Do you really want to go back? Do you really want to live in that world? You know, there's a reason why we represent that time in muted tones, because it was drab and it was
and
boring.
there's also a reason why, like, we don't revisit a lot of the literature and, you know, the films of this era, because everybody, including the most conservative people, are like, that was yikes. Wow. Overt racism. Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Well, Dan, if it's just going back and rewatching stuff, I've been rewatching The West Wing, and which is only 20 some odd years old. And the gender, the way that the men and women interact is not acceptable. Right?
Really?
Yes, it's not acceptable.
That was the very, very progressive show of the time.
Oh my God. Men commenting on women's like attractiveness directly to them or around them.
Oh my
God. In a
God.
playful, office-y sort of like yuckity sort of way. And it's like, that's not cool. One moment they're celebrating and like the men are grabbing the women and giving them kisses. They're coworkers. Men are grabbing their female coworkers and giving them kisses. And it's like, no. So like times change and we don't even realize like how monumental like social change can be in a short period of time. Like you're right, from one of the most liberal shows on television, one of the most progressive shows on television for its day. And it feels very foreign.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa. And so it's like, you don't even know what you want when you want to roll back the clock.
Yeah.
Right? You don't even know what you're going to get.
You're trying to roll the clock back to a time that exists only in your brain.
Yeah.
It wasn't real. It was never like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And totally, because the one thing that you see from that time, which is the thing that you want, you don't understand what society was like that allowed that thing. Right.
Yeah. Even if you were there.
Yeah.
You're wrong about what it was like.
Yeah, totally.
You give yourself 20, 30 years distance and you think you know what it was like back then, and you're wrong.
Yeah.
Cause I've also revisited several, shows or whatever. And it's just like, I liked that back then. I remember being very okay with that back then. That's not good. That's not okay.
Gay jokes about gay people.
Oh, right? Yeah.
Back in the 90s, any media from the 90s where the topic of homosexuality came up.
Yeah.
And these are shows by people that I know in the modern like those people grew up to be not homophobic, right?
Right.
Those people like progressed with society. They were just reflecting society at the time. And so I can be generous with them, right? When comics sort of, because you listen to the joke and you're like, whoa, we would never make that joke today. But it wasn't mean spirited. It was just in bad taste. Yeah. Right. And so like, that's how I get through that kind of stuff. And we've totally diverged.
Well,
but we're in our wheelhouse. This is where Frank and Dan get going, people.
Yeah, it's true. I just think that the point is that when conservative people, because the whole idea of the conservative mindset, the entirety of it is don't change things. Right. Keep things the way they were. I like it better. Don't move forward. Things are good now.
And turn back the clock if you can.
And turn back the clock if you can. And it's just a fear-based way of looking at the world. The whole thing is just, I'm afraid of what's coming. I don't understand, and therefore we can't go there.
Right.
And basically, there's no institution on earth better at that than the church. Any church.
Yeah, that's
like.
True.
That is kind of the bread and butter, is keep things the way they are. Like, look, we got a book. It's got all the rules we need. Yeah. We'll just go with that. Never mind the fact that even it isn't what we say it is and is constantly at variance with its goddamn self about things.
All right.
Yeah, it's just so funny to see the pendulum swings back and forth constantly. And yet the people who are trying to pull it back never realize that they're just doing the same thing that has been done since time immemorial, and they always end up on the wrong side of history. When history tells the story, they're always the bad guys.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But not this time. This time for sure. This time they're right. They'll prove it. All right, friends. Well, if you'd like to tell us that we're wrong and on the wrong side of history, that's fine. You can write into us, podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave a voicemail message. We'd love to hear from you. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
Go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist, and click on the like button.
And if you'd like to join one of our members-only lounges, you can do so. Go to our website, thankgodimatheist.com/members-only.
Yeah. Thanks so much to the Red Rock Hot Club for the use of their music.
And thanks to Gordon Johnston for the use of his music.
And thanks to all y'all for tuning in. We sure do appreciate you.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.